Reports suggest Mohammed bin Salman urged Trump to act decisively as fears of regional escalation intensified. A reported call from MBS appeared to push Trump toward a Lebanon ceasefire, potentially putting pressure on Israel. Sources indicate MBS quietly shaped diplomacy, linking Lebanon ceasefire efforts to broader Iran and Hormuz negotiations. Saudi Arabia reportedly pushed the United States to secure a Lebanon ceasefire in order to sustain ongoing negotiations with Iran. The kingdom shifted toward active mediation, linking its efforts to the broader goal of reopening the Strait of Hormuz, according to reports. Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman raised the issue directly with US President Donald Trump during a private high-level call. During the April 15 conversation, MBS strongly pressed Trump on the urgency and importance of securing a Lebanon ceasefire. Officials said the Saudi Crown Prince stressed that such a ceasefire was critical for advancing wider regional talks with Iran. Trump subsequently announced a 10-day ceasefire, a move that diplomats partly attributed to sustained Saudi diplomatic pressure. However, uncertainty persisted over whether Israel would fully comply and how firmly Washington would enforce the agreement. Meanwhile, Hezbollah criticized the Lebanese government for engaging in rare and controversial direct talks with Israel. Saudi Foreign Minister Prince Faisal bin Farhan was expected to meet US Secretary of State Marco Rubio, according to reports. Officials said Saudi Arabia had circulated a negotiation paper supporting a broader regional de-escalation framework. Observers noted that Riyadh's focus included preventing any further escalation around the Strait of Hormuz. The kingdom reportedly opposed wider US military escalation while carefully balancing its strategic ties with Washington. Saudi Arabia also provided logistical cooperation to the United States during a period of heightened regional tensions. At the same time, Riyadh remained concerned about the ongoing conflict's impact on Gulf maritime security. Officials said the kingdom ultimately prioritized regional stability over confrontation in its Iran-related diplomacy. Saudi Arabia's economic leverage over Pakistan was seen as strengthening its role in mediating the talks. Pakistan, in turn, emerged as a key intermediary between Washington and Tehran in the ongoing negotiations. Diplomats said Saudi Arabia quietly influenced outcomes behind the scenes while avoiding overt public positioning. Saudi Arabia, after previously encouraging the US to take stronger action against Iran, is now reportedly urging the US to halt further escalation in the region. Saudi Arabia is actively pressing the United States to roll back its naval blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, according to a Wall Street Journal report on diplomatic communications. Saudi officials fear that increased pressure on Tehran could trigger an escalation extending beyond the Persian Gulf area into other critical maritime zones. A key concern is the potential closure of the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, which serves as a vital passage linking the Red Sea to the Indian Ocean for global shipping. This route functions as an essential alternative pathway for Gulf oil exports, especially as flows through the Strait of Hormuz remain disrupted by current restrictions. The US blockade, which became active starting April 13, was enforced after diplomatic talks failed to reopen access through the Hormuz waterway. Riyadh's own oil exports are now rerouting to Red Sea ports, making their continued flow heavily dependent on the Bab el-Mandeb Strait remaining open and operational. If this strait is also compromised or closed, the kingdom's energy export lifeline could be severely threatened, impacting its economy significantly. Much of the concern centers on Iran's regional allies, particularly the Houthis based in Yemen, who could respond to the broader tensions. The Houthis control key stretches of the strait's coastline and have previously disrupted shipping traffic through attacks on vessels in the area. Arab officials are now warning the Houthis against re-engaging in hostilities, which could open a new front in the ongoing maritime conflict. Tensions in the Strait of Hormuz appeared to escalate on April 13 when the United States imposed a naval blockade targeting Iranian shipping, following the failure of prior diplomatic talks. Despite the newly enacted US blockade, an oil tanker successfully transited the Strait of Hormuz, according to reports from US military sources monitoring the waterway. The partially loaded oil tanker named Elpis managed to cross the strait on April 13, as detailed in a CNN report covering the incident amid heightened restrictions. The Elpis vessel reportedly cleared the narrow waterway without incident, even as the US blockade was actively in place against Iranian-linked shipping traffic. The Elpis had been previously sanctioned by the United States due to its alleged connections to Iran's shadow oil trade network operating outside official channels. This transit occurred shortly after President Trump's announced blockade was set to begin, marking an early test of the enforcement measures in the strategic choke point. The development was reported by Iran International, which cited a CNN report confirming the tanker's passage through the restricted area. US President Donald Trump said on April 12 that the US Navy would move to lock down the Strait of Hormuz after negotiations with Iran failed to produce a lasting agreement. Trump also declared that US forces would intercept, on global seas, any ship that continued to pay transit tolls or fees to Iran, signaling a bid to choke off Tehran's maritime revenue. Later, the US military announced that a naval blockade on Iran would formally begin from 10 a.m. Eastern Time on April 13, setting a precise start time for the operation. American commanders stated that they would seek to blockade all maritime traffic entering and exiting Iranian ports, dramatically tightening pressure on Tehran's trade routes. Meanwhile, uncertainty continues to affect other ships navigating the narrow Strait of Hormuz, with many operators hesitant amid the evolving restrictions. The Botswana-registered tanker Oster IA abruptly turned back just minutes after the US deadline passed, altering its course away from the blockade zone. Another vessel, the Rich Starry, reportedly drifted near Iran's Keshem Island, effectively stalling its movement as shipping patterns shifted. Shipping data shows hundreds of vessels are now stranded on either side of the Hormuz choke point, unable to proceed due to the imposed restrictions. This bottleneck at the key global oil waterway carries serious implications for international energy markets, potentially disrupting supply chains worldwide. In response, Iran's elite Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps issued a warning to the US and its allies against any miscalculations, hinting at severe consequences if the plan goes ahead. The IRGC Navy said that one wrong move by the United States would plunge its forces into a deadly whirlpool of destruction, evoking the image of a catastrophic confrontation at sea. According to Iranian media, the IRGC currently controls the strait and is only allowing civilian ships to pass under strict conditions that Tehran itself sets and monitors. The Guard stressed that any foreign warships attempting to pass through the Strait of Hormuz would be treated as a direct provocation and would lead to an armed confrontation. Iranian forces added that attempts by US warships to cross the strait would also constitute a violation of the two-week ceasefire that Tehran and Washington had agreed upon. Tehran's sharp warning followed US claims that 2 American warships had transited the Strait of Hormuz, while peace talks were still underway. The US said that the USS Peterson and USS Murphy moved through the strategic waterway during April 11 to 12 as part of ongoing regional operations. Washington stated that this transit was carried out as part of a mission to ensure that the strait was fully clear of sea mines and safe for commercial shipping. Admiral Cooper said the U.S. Navy had already begun the process of establishing a new, safer passage corridor through the mined area of the strait. Cooper added that details of this safe pathway would be shared with the global maritime industry soon, in an effort to reassure shipping companies amid heightened tensions. However, Iran denied that any U.S. military vessels had successfully transited the Strait of Hormuz, directly contradicting the American account. Tehran claimed that 2 U.S. warships attempted to enter, but turned back after facing an Iranian missile lock and drone threats in the narrow waterway. Iran and the U.S. had agreed to a 2-week truce on April 7, but subsequent peace talks held in Pakistan failed to deliver a breakthrough, setting the stage for the latest escalation. Iran asserted its own claim over the truce, deepening diplomatic tensions. Iranian Parliament Speaker Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf claimed credit for securing the agreement in a post on X. He said the ceasefire was driven by Hezbollah's resilience and the unity of the axis of resistance. Ghalibaf reiterated that Tehran remained true to its word on all commitments tied to the agreement. He also emphasized that Iran and its regional allies played a decisive role in shaping the outcome. However, the United States and Israel said the truce was achieved through separate diplomatic channels with Lebanon. Tehran and Pakistani mediators maintained that Hezbollah was included in the earlier US-Iran understanding on April 7. Iran had also warned it could reconsider its truce with Washington if Israeli operations in Lebanon continued. President Donald Trump announced a 10-day ceasefire in Lebanon aimed at halting the ongoing conflict and reducing regional tensions. The agreement was followed by plans for an unprecedented meeting between Israeli and Lebanese leaders in Washington next week. Reports said the proposed talks would mark the first high-level Israel-Lebanon engagement in decades, according to The Guardian. Trump said the deal could support broader diplomatic efforts involving both the United States and Iran. The ceasefire officially took effect at midnight on April 17, with reports of celebrations in parts of Lebanon. Trump provided limited operational details, emphasizing only the timing and duration of the truce. He later told reporters that he might visit Lebanon at an appropriate time depending on developments on the ground. In a Truth Social post, Trump urged Hezbollah to act nicely and well during the ceasefire period. The situation remains closely monitored, with tensions still high despite the temporary pause in hostilities. Meanwhile, reports indicated that Israel continued heavy airstrikes targeting Iranian-backed Hezbollah positions in Lebanon.